Okay, so today we're going to talk about Section 4, solving equations with decimals. But before we actually start solving, I just want to go over just one example real quick, which deals with determining whether x equals 1, comma, x equals negative 0.8, and x equals 2.2 is a solution to x minus 0.7 equals 1.5. In other words, before we start solving, I just want to get us to remember that the goal when we solve equations is to have the left-hand side of the equation equal the right-hand side. So I have like 3 little examples here, but they all deal with the same exact equation. So what we're going to do here is part A. We're going to let x equal 1. So, you know what? Let's do it like this. We're going to rewrite the problem. We're going to make our substitution here in a second. Now, I personally will put parentheses first, and then I will put in what x equals. Now, 1 minus 0.7 is going to be 0.3, which does not equal 1.5. So, if I let x equal 1, the answer is no. X equals 1 is not a solution. Now we're gonna do the same exact thing, except we're gonna use negative 0.8, and then x equals 2.2. So what I'm gonna do is just erase this so I can keep everything on the screen for us. I don't have to scroll up or down or anything. So give me a second and let me erase. All right, so everything's erased. Now remember, directly underneath the problem, I will put parentheses wherever I see the variable first, and then I make my substitution. So we have negative 0.8 minus 0.7 equals 1.5. And remember, when the signs of the numbers are the same, you combine them and keep the sign. So 0.8 plus 0.7 is going to be 1.5, and we keep the sign, so this is going to be negative 1.5 equals 1.5. Now, the only thing here is 1 is negative, 1 is positive, so they're not equal to each other. So the answer here is no. X equals negative 0.8 is not a solution. Okay, and now we're going to try the last part, which is going to be part C, which is x equals 2.2. So I'm going to go ahead and erase. All right, now we're going to let x equal 2.2. So I make my substitution. So now I'm just going to come off to the right. Just make sure everything's lined up. So I'm going to take 2.2 minus 0.7. Here I'm going to have to borrow. So the 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 7 is 5. Bring down my decimal, and 1 minus 0 is 1. So we get 1.5 equals 1.5. And that is a check mark. So yes, x equals 2.2 is a solution. Okay? So now we're going to move into actually solving equations, all right? And there are 4 rules that I want to go over that we've already been taught. So technically, you already know how to do this. It's just the numbers have changed a little bit. So let me go ahead and let me show you about this. So the first rule is going to be the addition property of equality. All right. And what the addition property of equality states is that if you have 2 things and they're equal to each other, what you are allowed to do is add the same number on both sides. You're allowed to do that. So that's our addition property of equality. Okay? Now, for the second one, This is called the subtraction property of equality. And the subtraction property of equality states that if you have two things equal to each other, you are allowed to subtract the same thing on both sides. Okay? The third property is called the multiplication property of equality. And what this says is that you are allowed to multiply both sides of the equation by the same number. Okay? And then for the last one, we have the division property of equality. And what this one says is that you are allowed to divide both sides of the equation by any number you want as long as it's the same. However, there is one number you're not allowed to use, and that is when c equals 0. So we're not allowed to divide both sides by 0. But other than that, what I'm going to do is just do a couple examples here. Actually, I'm not going to do a couple. I'm going to do a bunch, all right? Because I want to make sure I use every row at least once, okay? So here we go. Directions are simple. We're going to solve the following equations using our properties that we have above. So, number 1, y plus 2.7 equals negative 5.3. Now from here, what we're going to do is we are going to subtract 2.7 from both sides. Notice on the left-hand side, you get the letter y. On the right-hand side, the signs are the same, so we combine the numbers, keep the sign. 3 plus 7 is 10. Oops, let me write it lower. Drop my decimal point, carry the 1. 5 and 2 is going to be 7 plus 1 more is 8. So this is going to be negative 0.8. Okay? Next problem. A minus 4.75 equals negative 1.39. So here we're going to use that addition property of equality. So we're going to add 4.75 to both sides. Okay, now this one is going to be a little bit tricky. On the left-hand side, you get A. But on the right-hand side, notice that the signs are opposite. So what I'm going to have to do is subtract, because I have opposite signs. So I write the larger number on top, the smaller number beneath, and I just subtract. And I keep the sign of the larger number. So I got to borrow here. So this 5 becomes a 15. 7 becomes a 6. So 15 minus 9 is going to be 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. Decimal point comes straight down. 4 minus 1 is 3. Since 4.75 is larger, this is going to be 3.36. Okay? Now, if we just keep going, we have n minus 3.47 equals negative 2.64. Here, I'm going to add 3.47 to both sides. It's my addition property of equality. So I get the letter n on the left-hand side. But on the right-hand side, just like above, I'm going to have to subtract these two numbers because they have opposite signs. So I put the larger number on top, smaller number on the bottom. Bring my decimal down. 7 minus 4 is 3. This I need to borrow. So 14 minus 6 is 8. And 2 minus 2 is 0. So I get 0.83. All right, let's keep going. Let's try this problem. We're going to solve negative 8.4 equals 0.7 times b. Now with this problem, we needed to divide both sides by 0.7. So here, on the right-hand side, it's real simple. On the right-hand side, we get the letter b. However, on the left-hand side, we have to divide decimals. So you have to go back and you got to remember how to divide decimals. So first thing I'm going to do is just set it up. Now, one thing you're going to notice is I did not include a negative sign in my scratch work. This is my scratch work over here on the right-hand side. And the reason why I didn't is because I know if I look all the way on the far left-hand side where I'm drawing the arrow, a negative number divided by a positive number is going to be negative. So I know my answer is going to be negative. What I'm concerned with is just what is that number, okay? So remember, when you divide decimals, the number on the outside, the divisor, has to be a whole number. So I got to move that one place to the right, which means I need to move the dividend decimal one place to the right as well. So that's going to give me 7 divided into 84 with a decimal point and a decimal point. Now that the decimal point is placed, I no longer have to worry about it. I'm just going to go ahead and divide. 7 goes into 8 once. So I get 8 minus 7, which is a 1. Drop down to 4. 7 into 14 goes twice. So that's going to give me 14, and 14 minus 14 is 0. So my remainder is 0. So I know I know I'm done. So the answer is just negative 12. Okay? Let's try another one here. How about negative 5.6 equals 0.7c? So very similar to the previous, just different numbers changed a little bit. Process is still the same. I'm going to use the division property of equality to divide both sides by 0.7. On the right-hand side, I get c. I'm sorry, on the right-hand side, I get c. On the left-hand side, I know my answer is going to be negative because a negative divided by a positive is a negative. But what I need to be worried about now, what's the number? So I'll just set it up. Then I got to move this one place to the right, which means I move the dividend one place to the right. Put my decimal and decimal in my answer. So now 7 does not go into 5, but 7 will go into 56 8 times. So the answer is just negative 8. Okay? Let's keep moving. So here we have P divided by negative 1.8 equals negative 6.5. Now, in this situation, since I'm dividing the variable by negative 1.8, I'm going to do the opposite operation to solve for P, which means I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 1.8. So, let me just show you how that's done. All right, good. So from here, we have negative 1.8 in the numerator and negative 1.8 in the denominator. And here's what I'm talking about. Negative 1.8 in the numerator, negative 1.8 in the denominator, which means they're going to reduce into a number 1. So really what you're left over with on the left-hand side is just letter P. On the right-hand side, you got to do a negative times a negative, which is a positive, and then 1.8 times 6.5. So all we have to do is just multiply. Then we worry about the decimal afterwards. So 8 times 5 is 40. Carry the 4. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 4 more is 9. Now I erase my carryover, put a 0. 6 times 8 is going to be 42. Wait a second, I think it's 48. Yeah, my bad. 6 times 8 is 48. I'm glad I caught that. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 4 more. It's going to be 10. So I add straight down. Now I got to worry about the decimal. I have one decimal place in 1.8. I have one decimal place in 6.5. So when I bring them together, that gives me a total of 2. So I just move it 2 places to the left. 11.7. Okay? And we'll do one more like this. So B divided by negative 1.2 equals negative 5.4. So once again, we're going to do the multiplication property of equality. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 1.2. Sorry, I meant negative 1.2. On the left-hand side, they reduce. So I'm left over with a b. But on the right-hand side, a negative times a negative is a positive. So I just have to multiply 1.2 times 5.4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 1 more is 6. So now I add straight down. 1 decimal place in 1.2. 1 decimal place in 5.4. For a total of 2 decimal places. So put it on the far right. And just move it 2 places to the left. To give me 6.48. Okay. And that's basically it for section 4. It's just a matter of remembering your rules, which remember those rules. Addition property of equality, subtraction property of equality, multiplication property of equality, and then division property of equality. The only thing is we're just using decimals now instead of fractions or whole numbers or integers. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye.